All right, welcome to the next page of the notes. What we're going to do here on this page is tie into what was on the previous page with the properties of real numbers. Now we're going to go ahead and use those properties. What I've given you is a couple of expressions, equations, and I'm just asking you which property is illustrated in each of these. So we'll go ahead and work on the first one. Again, please feel free to work ahead and then come on back, check, and make sure you get the same answers that we get. In the first one, I have 5 times the quantity 4 multiplied by 13. That is equal to, on the left-hand side, the quantity 5 times 4 multiplied by 13. What we'll notice, first of all, is that I have the same numbers on both sides, and that those numbers are in the same order. 5, 4, 13, 5, 4, 13. What has changed is not the order. What has changed is the grouping. On the right-hand side, the 4 and the 13 are together. On the left-hand side, it's the 5 and the 4 that have been grouped together. And we know from the previous page that the property that deals with grouping is the associative property. So you should have, for this one, associative. Let's try the next one. In the next one, on the right-hand side, I have 2 times the quantity x plus 3, and on the left-hand side, 2x plus 6. Now, from Algebra 1, this one should jump off the page. You should immediately recognize this, but let's work through it together here anyway. What I'm trying to figure out is how do I go from the right-hand side to a 2x and a 6, because I don't have a 6 anywhere over here. Well, if I think about it for a second, it looks like maybe if I were to multiply the 2 times the x, 2 times x is definitely going to get me 2x. And if I were to multiply the 2 times the 3, 2 times 3 is going to get me a 6. Well, I should recognize this notation. I'm multiplying the 2 through the grouping symbol. That's going to be the distributive property. Distributive. There we go. Let me fix my U, because it doesn't look like a U, it looks more like a Y there. Distributive. All right, that takes care of the problems here. Let's slide down to the next set. These are the ones that I wanted to get to for you guys. If on the previous page when we were talking about the inverse property, you were having trouble picturing it, here we go. We're going to do these problems. Should make way more sense as you see me go through some of these. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and set up something to help me categorize my answers, make it a little bit more clear. I know that for the inverse, I'm going to need to do additive and I'm going to need to do multiplicative. So let me create a column for each of those. We will do the additive here, and we will do the multiplicative here. Okay, now we're going to start with the very first one. The first one is a negative 5/8. And the way the additive inverse works is I need to know what number do I need to add. What number do I need to add to a negative 5/8 in order to get 0? That's what the property says. To get 0, what do I have to add to the number that I'm given? I'm given a negative 5/8, so I got to figure out what goes here so that I get 0. Well, it should be pretty straightforward. If you have a negative 5/8, you would need to add a positive 5/8. Negative 5/8 plus 5/8 definitely gets me 0, and I have found my additive inverse. Right? Just the same number, opposite in sign. Pretty straightforward. To get the multiplicative inverse, again I have negative 5/8, and the property says I'm trying to figure out by what number do I need to multiply, and then I need a number here. Don't know what that number is yet. That's what we're trying to figure out, what number goes here, so that I don't get a 0, but for multiplicative inverse, I need to be equal to 1. Okay, well, let's think about this for a second. I have a negative 5/8. Now, we know that when it comes to multiplication, the only way to get rid of the minus sign is to multiply by another negative. So I know that right off the bat, a negative times a negative is going to get me a positive 1. So whatever this number is, it's going to have to be negative. Now what I need to do is I need to get rid of the 5/8. I need to turn that into a 1. First, let's take care of the 5 in the top. Well, with multiplication, the way that you get rid of a number is by doing the opposite operation. Since I'm multiplying by 5, it's in the numerator, it would make sense then if I were to divide by 5 in this other number, the 5s would cross cancel each other out. Awesome, that's exactly what I need. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a 5 in the denominator of whatever this number is, right? And that way those 5s will cross cancel. The negative signs cancel each other out. And now I need to get rid of the 8.